Hey, guys, this is the Life with Lizzie show. I think this is episode number 3, if I'm not mistaken. And I am so excited to be recording this week's episode because this is something that, I don't know, it has changed my perspective on everything in life. And I'll only touch on a little bit while we're on here. But I think, or I hope that other people hear from my experience and kind of get a shed of light on looking at things differently, and not always the way we've grown up looking at things. And it'll make more sense in a minute. I want to preface that I'm not a doctor or any type of professional in any type of scenario and anything in life, but I'm just here sharing my personal experiences, my personal results from doing certain things in my life, and that's what that's about. I'm not giving advice, just FYI. Y'all get the drill. So I want to talk about how I, over the last couple years, have went from more of a mainstream lifestyle to a somewhat crunchy lifestyle. And if you don't know what crunchy is, some people really laugh at the term, but crunchy is like, I say hippie, but I say that very loosely. Like the moms that buy organic and, like homeschool and garden and just kind of like, that type of mom, like the natural minded mom, the mom that uses like essential oils and stuff like that. And the thing is, crunchy can totally be it can be applied to so many different people. Like, for instance, I don't garden, I kill plants, but I consider myself somewhat crunchy. So we usually call that if you're like in between, where you're like, okay, I relate more. Like I'm totally way more aligned with the crunchy lifestyle, like morally and ethically and like all of those ways. But I still I'm not full out there. I'm not buying always organic and like non-GMO and just all the perfect things. Like I'm not all the way there yet. That's basically what it is. If you guys get kind of the picture, like more aligned with holistic values and ideas and practices for your life. So, growing up, I had a couple family members that were actually kind of holistic. For instance, one of my cousins, when we would go to her house and have like a slumber party, the toothpaste they had was like some natural type of toothpaste that did not foam. And I never felt like my mouth was clean after using that toothpaste. And there's just like little things like that, when I was exposed to like the crunchy type of people or the crunchy type of products, they just didn't seem like, I just didn't like it, I had some exposure to it, but like overall growing up, like I grew up with my parents like smoking cigarettes and drinking, and not that I'm not trying to judge anybody. I'm just saying like, we grew up in a trailer park, like we were on food stamps, my sister eating ramen for dinner. I mean like a Totino's pizza, like that's just how we were growing up. And our childhood was crazy overall, but like we just weren't very super health centered growing up. I developed a food addiction somewhere in my childhood. I was super overweight beginning in elementary school. My sister had a bunch of cavities, and some of that's genetics and stuff, but like we could eat what we wanted for the most part. We were really picky. My mom gave us Benadryl all the time and Tylenol and all the things like the doctors tell you to do all the time. And we got all of our vaccines, and, my sister and my brother were sick. Actually, both of my sisters were literally always sick all the time. My brother has all these gut health issues. I had other issues growing up, obviously, like there's a bunch of different things, but overall, we were not the epitome of health. I would not call us, okay? So that's how I grew up, I went to the health department to go get birth control. I left with multiple vaccines, didn't know what it was. And I'm not trying to make this podcast about that, but you get what I'm saying? Like, I just was like, I would do anything. Like, I didn't care. I didn't know about the side effects of all the birth control I got on. I didn't know of what all this medication and stuff that I was being prescribed for X, Y, and Z was doing to me. And it just, I blindly trusted the pharmaceuticals and all these other cleaning companies, all these companies I just trusted. It wasn't an issue. And so what kind of got me interested in learning about more alternative methods of just living in general, whether it be the food you're eating, like buying organic and figuring out why organic is better, or why, non-GMO, or whatever the case is that you're looking for. Trying to figure out, why is maybe using essential oils in this scenario better than taking medicine? Why is, taking CBD better than taking Tylenol? Trying to just figure out what is the difference in our body and what is it doing to me. And I don't know all the research and things, obviously, but what triggered me to go down this path and learn more about all this stuff was me going through infertility. Because up until that point, I had birth control in. I was using, the bleach in my house, and I'd actually worked for cleaning companies for years. So I was exposed to all those chemicals all day long, all the time, had birth control in for years, was abusing my body, like with my food addiction, just not taking care of myself. And I was very young. So when I got off birth control and was going through infertility, about almost a year, more like 9 months went by through infertility, and I finally just said, enough's enough. I have to lose weight, because in my particular circumstance, I do believe that weight was hindering me in my fertility, because, just because the foods I'm eating, number one, like you can be skinny as a toothpick and eating horribly and have inflammation, or whatever the case is. So, my biggest motivation was, to get healthy so I could, get pregnant, because my body was in so much pain and the inflammation, and like, I felt like I was 80 years old, and I was like, 20, 21, something like that. I felt horrible. I was 360 something pounds, So I finally started feeling my body way better, because I knew I couldn't do the binge eating and all that anymore. And so my food addiction was at an all-time low from the time I started losing weight to the time I got pregnant with my son. And it was great. I just learned how to portion control. I learned how to not eat with my emotions. And I will tell you what started that. So at the time that I was trying to emotionally get ready to lose weight, I started taking CBD oil. And I never taken CBD oil before. I mean, look, can we be real on here? I'm all for cannabis in all the ways. I am pro cannabis forever and ever and ever and ever. And so I had smoked a few times, whatever before, but I wasn't an avid smoker. I wasn't taking CBD oil. I wasn't doing anything. But I knew I was in so much pain, number one. Number two, my periods were all over the place, which was really, really making it hard to get pregnant, because I didn't know when I was ovulating. I didn't know when to expect my period. They would be 40-day cycles, and a 25-day cycle, and then a 36-day cycle. It was all over the map. And so my friend Cindy, if you're listening, hey, actually, it's really crazy that this all kind of leads back to you. My girl Cindy was doing the CBD thing on the side, and I was just reading how it could really help with the pain I was going through and the period pain I would have, and that it was just really, really good for that. So I got me some, and that month my periods went back to normal. Not only did that month, and every month that I took CBD, keep in mind. So not only was it regulating my hormones to the point where my periods were trackable and predictable, but I remember, and I still have statuses on my Facebook of when this happened, and video clips from me going live talking about this. And I wasn't affiliated with the company. I wasn't selling CBD at the time. I was just in love with how I was feeling. So not only was it helping with the periods and stuff, but also it was so crazy. We went on a company trip with my husband's job, and we actually have it again next month. We have it around this time every year. So we went on this company trip, and usually every year, they pay for all the food. Everything's paid for on this trip, essentially, except for your gas to get there. And so they just, buy you lunch and buy you dinner, and they just buy all this food. And, it's just this huge company event. You eat all weekend, you have fun, whatever. And usually I take full advantage of it because, #food addiction. This was the first time on a company trip that I had been healing my body with CBD. I had been taking CBD probably 2 weeks before this, consistently. And I remember taking CBD and not feeling the urge to continue to eat my plate when I felt full. So if you've never dealt with like food addiction or binging or anything like that, like something in my brain used to just go off if my plate was not empty. Like I had to finish my plate. And I don't know if that stems from like my dad telling me that when I was a kid. I'm sure a lot of us dealt with that, like finish your food before you get up. I know my dad did that to us. So I just always like would just feel the need. Not because anyone was telling me anymore. No one's sitting there next to me at 20 years old telling me, finish your food. Just something subconsciously that I've done for a really long time. And it was like I took CBD that morning. I was taking it the whole weekend because I was on my period. Oh, that sucked. And I was using it as like my pain management, and it helped, with the cramps and everything, thankfully. And I just remember not wanting to binge and finish all that food because I felt full. And like my body was just, it was the weirdest thing. Like it was the first time that something just clicked, I felt like in forever in my brain, where it was like, okay, you're full. Like I don't know, CBD did something, repaired itself in my body to where I understood the assignment, if you feel what I'm saying. Like it was amazing. And so I continued like loving CBD, and that was my first encounter. And when I finally got pregnant, about a year later after this incident, I was still taking CBD. I did a bunch of things the month I got pregnant, but essentially, the months that I took it consistently, because there were some months like during the summer or whatever that I wasn't buying it. The months I took it, and I know when I took it because I have the order history and all that, when I go look at the period apps, they're always, my periods were so much more predictable, and I was ovulating and all the things. And CBD was the consistent factor and all that. And it was so crazy to see that on paper, number one, like to see the proof on the apps and stuff like that, but to also experience my back not hurting when I woke up in the morning. Because I was still big at this point. When I first started taking CBD, this was like right before I lost weight. This was like October of 2018. I started losing weight about like December, January really is when I got serious, after Christmas and stuff. So yeah, it was just like the start of everything. And so I would say about halfway through, closer to not too long before I got pregnant, maybe like 4 or 5 months before I got pregnant, I started learning more about like, I said the perfumes and stuff and all these things that are so bad for our bodies and so bad for our fertility and so bad for our health. And I think me just getting into the CBD world alone was like enough to introduce me, and it just kind of like domino affected into learning one thing, and then someone else would post another thing, and then you'd see something else shared that was just like, oh my gosh, I did not know that. And so I started slowly throwing out things. Well, it was so easy to throw away all the perfume. Like that was like number one. I just threw it all away, threw away a bunch of like the lotions I was using and nail polish and just stuff that like I could bear to part with, that wasn't like sentimental or anything, that I didn't use every single day like in my routine, and that was toxic to me, so I just threw it away. And even now, like a couple years later, since I had first got into everything, I'm still not like the crunchiest mom or anything like that ever, okay? Like we still occasionally drink diet soda, and I, still have junk food here and there, and, do things that aren't the greatest. And I buy products that aren't the greatest for our house sometimes just out of convenience. And sometimes it's just one of them things like, you make the sacrifices, but overall I have, as time has went on, made long-term changes, if that makes sense. So maybe my whole house isn't perfect right now, but something that we did change is, for instance, not having to always use Tylenol, going to more of a holistic approach, whether that be CBD or, whatever else. I mean, there's arnica, there's so many things you could literally put on your body or ingest or whatever. Of course, do your own research. I'm not giving advice, but, it doesn't always have to be like Tylenol or something, And so, like I said, right around the time I got pregnant, I had changed our laundry detergent. I quit using dryer sheets. I was using like wool dryer balls. I was eating like not all organic, but I tried my best. I did what I could. Not drinking anything but water and like lemon water and like infused waters like that. Exercising, eating healthy. And what do you know? I ended up getting pregnant with my son after dealing with infertility for 2 years. Unknown infertility, because like I said, I never wanted to go to the doctor because I was always scared it was going to be like, your weight, it's your weight. You just need to lose weight, blah, 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 blah. And then while I was pregnant with my son, I was not that crunchy, like I said. I mean, this was just like the beginning. This was like taking CBD and switching out a few items, not even understanding like the full depth of it all. And then the pandemic hit. And I know it's not just me, but a lot of people's eyes were opened during 2020 to a lot of things. And medical-wise, when it came to, doing things with our children, doing things to ourselves, and the medicines we take and the things that we do, I think just opened a lot of people's eyes. And so that's when I got like I said, not the crunchiest, but man, that's like when I got really, like the light was just revealed to me and I'm like, wow. So we're actually a lot sicker than we think. And like fatigue and feeling like this is not supposed to be normal. And like all these autoimmune diseases are not normal. And so really in 2020 during my pregnancy, and then just as time has went on, being a mom, having my son, and going through the motions of dealing with medical issues and just whatever else comes to mind, just a lot of the foods we eat and the things I give my child and the way I feed my child and just all those things, there's a lot to it. I have definitely reached a level of like more crunchy than not, for sure. I would love to eventually just get my house like completely there and like stabilized there, like with every single product, but it takes time. And so I want you guys to know, like, don't ever feel like, you see these crunchy people or you see these people and you want to change your life, because I will be honest, like changing the products and changing the things that you're doing in your life, the things that you touch and use on a daily basis and are ingesting and all the things, it does play a role. Like whether we think it does or doesn't, it does for sure. That stuff is going in our lungs, spraying your aerosol, spraying your whatever, your perfume, the makeup you're putting on your face. All those things do affect us. And so if you're somebody that like wants to get on that path, don't feel like you have to, do it all, throw everything away at once and like do it, buy all this new stuff and then keep up with that forever. Like I tried to potentially do that and it just didn't really work. Like it really takes like the slow lifestyle changes and getting used to adding that one new thing in your routine. So switching out your laundry detergent and getting used to using, whatever laundry detergent is. And sometimes you have to try products first and see what works and see what doesn't. And, it takes some time. And it takes some time adjusting, getting used to having like a bunch of fragrance in all your products and then having like close to none. So don't beat yourself up and think it has to be an overnight process. I'm a couple years in and I'm still taking my time when it comes to, getting my house converted. But I will say, once you kind of get in to that lifestyle and just get a little exposure, it's really fun, learning that you don't have to rely on, potentially, quote, quote, potentially not giving advice. Say, you have some kind of medical thing going on and you realize by a simple diet change or by, taking a certain type of vitamin, you can reverse it. There's obviously, everyone has different circumstances, but my point is when you realize the power of the natural herbs and remedies that God gave us on this earth, it's like very empowering, honestly. And it just takes time though. It takes time. We're used to growing up the last, however old you are. I'm sure you're like over 18 if you're listening to this. So say you're 18 years of like knowing Tylenol and knowing ibuprofen and knowing Motrin and knowing, Pepto-Bismol and knowing fast food and knowing junk food and knowing alcohol and knowing cigarettes, and like that's just what you grew up around, and that's all you know. So when it comes time to learning new things and trying to figure out how to treat certain things at home that normally you would treat, like I said, Benadryl, ibuprofen, or something like that, it takes learning and it takes time and it takes patience. And like I said, I'm not even close to being all the way there yet. I would say I'm definitely way more aligned with, sorry, that is my son playing with pot lids. He woke up in the middle of this. I'm definitely more aligned with a crunchy lifestyle and all the things, but it's a game changer once you get on that rabbit hole of educating yourself and learning that you don't have to rely on toxic things that just give you more side effects. It's, that's the one thing is like you use something and then it gives you a side effect. So then you have to buy something else to treat that side effect, but then that has side effects. So you're constantly like just trying to fix something when all along you're not getting down to the root of the problem. That's what I love about holistic types of methods. Just for instance, CBD oil, the reason it works so powerfully in humans and even animals is that we have an endocannabinoid system. And so when you take CBD, it responds to those receptors and goes to town healing your body. It's very, very powerful. And so I'm not here to sell you anything on that. I did end up getting in the CBD space for about, I don't know, close to a year, something like that. I don't know. For a while, and I loved it because it just transformed my life. That's not what I do anymore, but I'm still like pro cannabis, pro holistic health, pro all the things. I'm not anti doctor or pharma or whatever. I'm just much more for the natural approach when it's available and totally valid to use. So if anyone ever wants to talk to me about like getting on that like holistic journey, I don't completely try to make my brand about that, but I will just tell you that I do believe it did change my life in so many ways. And I'm so, oh my goodness, so grateful that I know what I know. And I knew what I knew before I had my son, so that the decisions I made as a mom, God, I'm not the perfect mom. I'm like very, 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 very far from being a perfect mom. I promise you, I'm not trying to like toot my own horn, but I know there's always things that a lot of times we look back and wish we would have done differently. And there are things I look back and wish would have went differently when Anakin was little. But overall, there's a lot of decisions that I thankfully made differently because I did the research and was exposed to this type of life while I was pregnant before he was here. Because I would be the biggest regret mom for so many things if I didn't know what I knew before I had him. And so I'm just really, really grateful. And that's why it's never too late to like look into that. Even if your kids are like 15 and about to be out the house, it's like, you learn what you can. So that way when you have grandkids, or that's why when your friends have grandkids, or, your friends have kids, you have the knowledge to help other people. And thankfully, because of this, like I said, I'm not a doctor or anything, and I don't try to be, but I try to help people and point them in the right direction. So that was kind of the point of this episode, that how I got on my journey to a more holistic minded life. And I hope this encourages you guys to go look more into that. Like I said, if you want to talk more with me and just, get to know my story a little bit more and see where you're at with yours, you can always message me on my social media and we can talk more there. But I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. If you listen this far of the podcast, please screenshot and post in your social media stories and tag me at Lizzie and Little to give me a shout out. I am, doing this as a hobby, but I really do appreciate when you guys share, because that helps me get seen and helps people find this podcast. So I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. And I'll see you on the next episode of the Life with Lizzie show. Bye.